Development is the first phase of the planning process for your session. You are leading a team-based learning session, abbreviated as TBL. It is helpful to start with your goals for the session. What do you want your students to take away from the session? These goals will be outlined in the session learning objectives. The purpose of a TBL is to encourage a collaborative learning environment that follows a specific sequence of individual work, group work, and immediate feedback. A TBL engages learners in learning activities within a small group that works independently in class with high learner-faculty ratios. One component of the TBL which sets it apart from other session types is the Independent and Team Ready Assurance Tests, abbreviated as RATs, at the beginning of the session. These are tied to the content to be covered in the activity portion of the TBL. Please work with your module co-directors to ensure alignment between the session material and Ready Assurance test. Consider the foundational knowledge required of the students in order to participate fully in your session. What materials could help fill learning gaps and solidify foundational knowledge? Identify materials that could be used to help prepare students for the TBL. This could be a textbook reading, a video, or a digital activity. This material will be listed as required material for the students. Required material implies information that is critical to the student's ability to understand content, display competency in the Ready Assurance test, and participate fully in the session. Familiarize yourself with the learning objectives for your session prior to outlining your content. These are the key takeaways that express to what degree the students will be able to demonstrate and apply their understanding. This will help you to stay on track when planning your session content. Utilize the learning objectives to outline your lesson plan. Keep in mind the length of time allowed for your session. The length of time will determine how much and to what depth of the content you can cover. It is better to be able to cover less material more thoroughly. Keep in mind the student's present knowledge and consistently make connections from new information back to existing knowledge. Because TBLs are largely discussion-based, you will want to plan your discussion points, prompts, and follow-up discussions and questions in advance. Reflect on potential student responses and how you might respond with a question to encourage further discussion and reflection rather than providing direct answers. See the Questioning Strategies resource linked on the resource page for more tips on how to plan and facilitate discussions. Plan for short periods of time at regular intervals throughout your session to invite student interaction, discussion, and check for understanding. Also plan time at the beginning for orienting students to the plan for the session, and allow time at the end for a summary or guided reflection of the session. This is referred to as the Bookend Approach. This picture illustrates an example of how a session can be formatted with this approach. Plan to leave time for a summary at the end of your session. Refer back to the learning objectives and briefly address each one. This can be a good time for an informal assessment. For example, ask open-ended questions directly related to the learning objectives and listen to student responses. A lesson planning guide is also linked to support your planning process. Although you may not follow it in its entirety, it can be helpful for planning the flow of your session. Consider what supplementary materials you can offer the students to follow your session. These are not required materials, but rather aids for further understanding. These can be textbook readings, a video, a digital activity, or something else. The next step in the planning process is design. See the next video to learn more about setting up presentation materials and designing your session page on Canvas.